In the days when the northern seas roared with storms and the longships of warriors cut across waves, there was born a man whose name would echo through the halls of time. His name was Erik Thorvaldsson, the son of Thorvald, a man already marked by exile and blood, for Thorvald had slain a man in Norway and was cast away with shame upon him. So the family fled to Iceland, where the winds were colder and the nights longer, yet the fire of vengeance and strength burned brighter in their bloodline. Erik grew tall and broad, with hair the color of flame and a beard that glowed like the setting sun. His eyes were fierce and filled with storms, and when anger rose within him few could withstand his rage. So the people began to whisper, they called him EricTheRed, not only for the fire upon his head but for the wrath that flowed from his soul like rivers of blood. In Iceland Erik tried to build his stead. He took a wife Thjodhild and raised children Leif and his siblings, but the spirit of war was never silent within him, for quarrels rose quickly among the settlers. Land disputes, feuds, old grudges, and the swing of an axe settled more matters than words. One such quarrel turned to slaughter. Men fell beneath Erik's hand, and soon the law declared him outlaw. No man could shelter him, and so like his father before him he was cast out from Iceland. His name cursed, his fate uncertain. But exile was not defeat, for a true Viking exile is a call to destiny. When the sea whispers new lands and the gods test the strength of men, so Erik took his ship and gathered those who would follow him, and he sailed into the west, where icebergs floated like mountains and storms howled with the voices of giants. The seas tried to break him, the winds tried to drown him, but he pressed on with the fire of his rage, driving him ever further, until at last land rose before his eyes, vast white with stone cliffs and fjords deeper than spears of the gods. This was the land that men feared, for it was barren, cold and unforgiving. But Erik saw not despair, he saw glory, he saw promise, and he swore upon the steel of his axe that he would claim it as his own. He named it Greenland, for though the land was cruel he spoke words of cunning. If the name was green men would follow, thinking it fertile, and so the lie became his weapon, a lie that drew settlers to his banner. When the years of exile ended he returned to Iceland, his ship creaking with tales of this new world, and he called upon the people, come with me, come to the land of Greenland, where farms will rise, where cattle will graze, where freedom awaits beyond the reach of kings and outlaws. And the people listened, for they knew the strength of Erik and they feared his wrath, but they also hungered for new soil and new hope. So hundreds came, they loaded ships with families, with animals, with tools, with dreams, and they followed him into the unknown. The journey was harsh, many ships broke upon the waves, many lives were claimed by the sea, yet those who survived landed upon the stony coasts of Greenland, and there they built the first Norse settlements under the iron will of EricTheRed, his axe gleaming, his voice thundering like Thor himself. He ruled with fire and fear, but also with vision, for he knew the settlement could not falter. The cold would kill the weak, the storms would crush the careless. Only strength, only unity, only the warrior spirit could make this land theirs. Erik became chieftain, lord and judge, his word law, his wrath swift. His followers both feared and revered him. They built homes upon the fjords, they raised halls where mead flowed, and songs of valor filled the smoke-dark rafters. They hunted, they fished, they carved a life from rock and ice, and through it all the legend of Erik grew greater, for he was the man who had tamed exile, turned shame into empire, and carved Greenland from the jaws of death. Yet the saga of Erik is not only of land and rule, it is of blood and destiny, for the Red was never a man to live quietly. His sons would carry forth his fire, most of all Leif, who would sail even farther to lands beyond the west, lands rich with forests and game, lands that men would later call Vinland. But before that destiny came, Erik's own tale burned like a torch, his anger, his cunning, his iron spirit bound into every stone of Greenland, every wave that broke upon its shores. Men said he was cursed by the gods, others said he was chosen, for only the chosen can turn exile into empire, only the chosen can bend lies into truth and build greatness upon him. His enemies called him murderer, his followers called him chieftain, but all agreed he was more than man. He was saga made flesh, his hair flame, his beard blood, his eyes storm. And so the first part of his saga closes not with peace but with the rising storm of what was yet to come. For Erik's story did not end in exile, it began there, his axe still sharp, his heart still wild, the gods still watching as the Red carved his place in eternity. When the settlers of Greenland raised their halls and farms beneath the watch of the icy mountains and the long nights of the northern sky, the name of EricTheRed spread like fire across the seas. Men spoke of the outlaw who had forged a kingdom from stone and frost, who had turned exile into triumph, and who ruled not by crown of gold but by the fire of his spirit. At the edge of his axe his enemies spat his name with hatred, yet even they could not deny that he had become more than mortal, he had become a living saga. But the gods are never done with such men, for they test those who burn brightest, they test with sorrow, with loss, with fate heavier than iron and sharper than steel. Eric's life was not spared from trial, his halls filled with people, yet his soul bore shadows, the whispers of those he had slain, the cold memories of exile, the blood that marked his hands, and as he grew older his fire did not fade, but it twisted into iron pride and unyielding wrath. His wife Theodhild turned to the white Christ brought by preachers from across the sea. She built a small church upon the land, yet she turned from Eric, refusing his bed, for his heart was bound to the old gods and to the ways of the axe and the sword. He would not kneel to a god nailed upon wood, he would not bow his head, for he was forged by Odin's storms, by Thor's thunder, by the howling of wolves across the frozen night. So division entered his hall, faith against faith, wife against husband, yet still he ruled, still his voice thundered above the fjords, still his name was feared. And then came the voyages of his son Leif the Bold, the son of the Red, whose fate would outshine even that of his father. Leif sought lands beyond Greenland, beyond the edge of the known world. He sailed westward across seas no man had claimed, and found Vinland, a land of forests, rivers and game, a land rich and wide, a land that proved the world was greater than men had dreamed. And when Leif returned, the settlers sang his name, yet they knew the fire that had set him upon that path had come from his father, from EricTheRed, who had taught him to fear nothing, to seek beyond the horizon, to claim destiny from the jaws of death. But Eric himself did not see Vinland, for when Leif prepared to sail he begged his father to join him, yet fate struck Eric low, for as he readied his ship a fall from his horse injured him gravely. Some say it was the gods themselves striking him down for his pride, others say it was the curse of exile come full circle. Whatever the cause, he was left behind as Leif sailed west, and so the Red remained in Greenland, the land he had named, the land he had forged, the land that was both his triumph and his prison. Yet even in age and pain he remained a warrior, no man dared rise against him, no feud dared ignite within his sight. His word was still law, his anger still swift, his axe still gleamed beside him, and the people knew that while Eric lived Greenland stood, for he was the stone upon which it was built, the fire that kept it alive. Winter upon winter came, the snows fell thicker, the winds cut sharper, the settlers struggled, yet they remembered the strength of the Red. They remembered how he had led them across the sea, how he had turned cold stone into home, how he had made them endure when death waited at every turn, and in their songs, in their sagas, they gave him immortality long before death claimed him. And when death did come, it came as it does to all men, yet not as it does to ordinary men, for with EricTheRed death was no end, it was a beginning. His fire did not vanish, it blazed into legend, his name carried across oceans, his deeds sung in halls from Greenland to Iceland to Norway, to every place where warriors raised their horns of mead. His story became a banner for those who dared to defy exile, who dared to carve greatness from despair, who dared to believe that even when the world casts you out you can rise greater than kings. They said he walked with Odin in Valhalla, his hair blazing, his beard red as blood, his hand upon the haft of his axe, and that the slain warriors turned their eyes to him, for even in death he bore the mark of greatness. They said Thor himself welcomed him, for the hammer god knew strength when he saw it, and Eric had strength beyond measure. And they said that in the nights of Greenland, when storms howl and waves crash upon the cliffs, his voice can still be heard roaring across the wind, calling men to courage, calling men to rise, calling men to remember. Erik Thorvaldsson, EricTheRed, outlaw, chieftain, exile, settler, father, warrior, legend, more than man, more than mortal, he became the soul of Greenland, and through his son the soul of Vinland, and through his saga the soul of every man who dares to stand against fate. For in the end EricTheRed proved that exile is not the end, defeat is not the end, shame is not the end is only for those who surrender, but for those who rise, for those who fight, for those who carve destiny with steel and fire. There is no end, there is only legend. And so his saga closes not with silence but with thunder, not with sorrow but with fire, his name blazing across time, his deeds carved in the stone of memory, his spirit roaring forever like the storming sea. For EricTheRed became more than man, he became legend, he became the voice of defiance, he became the unyielding will of the north, he became the eternal flame of warriors.